Just before we get into the closing piece, there's been a bit of a thread throughout the day that Patrick talked about Ask Jay, and Justin mentioned some AI agents. Roxanne gave a really good setup for this about the collaboration. So we thought before the closing, in the interest of the final session, we'll do just one more thing. So I'll show you a couple of things before we do the wrap up. So if we go to the next slide, this one here. So there's been this is sort of a slide about what we've been doing with AI over the last sort of few months. Now, on your left-hand side of that, where we've got the general public knowledge, that's you heard Patrick mention earlier that in time for alongside the Jade 2025 release, we'll be making Ask Jay available. So that's kind of the left-hand side of that diagram. So what Ask Jay is, as Patrick talked about actually, so it's an AI chatbot. It's seeded with a lot of Jade general knowledge. And where it sits for us, you heard talk throughout the day about the talent pipeline and things. So the positioning of that is basically as a general Jade tool to help people learn Jade, come into it, learn more, and sort of if you think about it early on in your Jade progression. And I'll show you that in a second. And then on the right-hand side is something that's it's been underway for a few months, so I'll show you the output of it in a second. It's directional, absolutely committed. It's where we're going. And when Roxanne talked about the collaboration we've been doing in some of the AI space, what I'll show you is actually the output at the moment from that. And we're really grateful to Roxanne to give permission for me to do that. Otherwise, they'd be getting a whiteboard diagram or charades or something, which wouldn't be anywhere near as interesting. Actually, I'll explain a bit of the things. So on the left-hand side, Ask Jay, when it's available, so Ask Jay, Patrick mentioned it is public AI. So we have within that what's called a RAG store where we've loaded up a whole lot of knowledge content about the Jay platform, and Patrick talked about code and things. That's all built by us and hosted by us. But the final inference and what will be made available to you uses OpenAI for the final inference. Okay, so in that sense, it's not private because ultimately the prompt and the context that goes into it will actually go to a third-party AI service. Now that's no different than if you were using any chatbot in your work today, right, and putting stuff in it. And so that's quite a performant and cost-effective way for us to deliver that service. And Skipton, for example, have been piloting that for a wee while. We've been using it in Jade for a number of months, and people using that, helping product owners like Patrick out, as he talked about. But we have other situations, Roxanne touched on it, where you've got these big, established, long-standing code bases, millions of lines. Many of you work with them. And when you're in perhaps a highly regulated industry, there's certain rules in the business where you can't take that code and put it into a third-party service. And also the code is of a size where initially you want to be able to perhaps derive knowledge and stuff from it to help people who maybe have been fully trained in Jade, but when they come into a code base, want to start navigating it and understanding it in a way, first to orient themselves on it, perhaps before they even know what questions and things to start about. And that's what we're doing with, at the moment, what we call our private AI, or Ask Jay Private. And you'll see there's a bit of a difference there. We're leveraging a lot of the same AI machinery at the base, but in the scenario that we've been collaborating with TSB on, all of their code has come into a secure environment. I mean, our Jade Care service hosts and runs TSB's production systems. So it's like they trust us with the production system, which has the code in it and everything. We have a high degree of trust with them in terms of hosting secure environments. Anyway, so there's been a dedicated environment set up for that. Instead of using OpenAI, we are using a private LLM in there. So that's an open weight model that we've got, and we can host that. There are no third-party AI services involved in this. The fact that we have that private model, because it's an open weight one, it gives us, it means that we can add to the pre-training and we can also fine-tune on top of it. Right? That's not something that you can certainly do cost effectively or anything with OpenAI, but we have, or other third-party cloud-based provider, unless you're really, really big with tons and tons of money. But we can do that because we're using an open weight model ourselves. When you get lots and lots of code coming in, that's what I've got in that base knowledge there. So we're taking the code, we're extracting what I'll call a knowledge graph, which is basically pulling a whole lot of stuff out of the Jade meta schema based on that code. It's also really useful to try and get some human signal about the structure of that code. Existing documentation is really good, but in TSB's case, we managed to leverage this change log they have embedded in the code going all the way back to 1988, so we can get some good signal out of there. And then we've got a number of, you heard Justin mention some agents, right? So we have a few agents, and the plan over time is we would build these out, looking at different aspects of the system. But what I'll show you in a second is we've got an agent that was started with looking at writing documentation at the class and method level. Industry classification, it's probably easier, I'll show you, explain that when I show it. And something that's in really earlier stages is whether we can have agents that are looking in a very detailed way at specific, if you like, code smells or aspects of lines of code, right? And whether we can start surfacing some good insights and understandability and signals and stuff from the code. So there's certainly common tech at the bottom, but they're two quite different use cases. General Jade knowledge, helping people come in to the community and learn about the platform, and then over here, it's perhaps taking someone with that general Jade knowledge and helping them understand a large existing code base in a particular domain. So now I'll try where's the plug and play. Here we go. So this is an Ask Jay session. I did this during the break. So this is the Ask Jay UI. It's using an open source technology called Open Web UI. So it'll feel familiar to any chatbots you've used. It's got a whole lot of chats and things over on the left that it keeps. And I'm sure anyone who's used ChatGPT, this will be familiar, but you can see what I asked it to do. So I asked a method there, write a method to play tic-tac-toe. So you can see that it's come back with some Jade code to do that. I haven't put it in Jade to try it, but like all good developers, it probably works first time, doesn't it? Yep. But you can see that. So the obvious one there, you can ask about code. Then I asked it to outline a unit testing plan for the tic-tac-toe application. So you see it's come back with some ideas and things there. So there we go. I asked it then, write the Jade code. For one of the suggestions it had was write some tests for board initialization. So it's come back with some suggestions and things about how to do that. You'll see that it's written it as a Jade unit test method. So you can see it does know about things like epilogues, and see it's good, nice. It tidies up its transients. Good Jade developer. And then you can have a bit of fun with it. People know, in Jade, the error-on system, we have the patterns of using transaction agents and things to structure your code. So I thought, there we are. We used to have Jade kids back in the day when we were getting them in from school. So there we are. Explain the concept of transactions agents in Jade like I'm a 10-year-old. There we are. Favourite toys. Not bad. Hey, I'm going to play with these toys for a bit. But there we are. So it does, it knows about transaction agents and things. So I'm sure you get the idea. And, the feedback we've had on this, and as you heard from Patrick earlier, is this is a really useful tool for people to be able to come in and learn Jade and ask questions of it. Now, you can obviously put code in this. We've actually done this where, with some examples of code where people were happy to try it. You could take a method, for example, and put it in here and ask it to explain it. What do you think of this method? What recommend? And it will, it understands the structure of the method. It will come back with recommendations. But of course, it has to be okay, for your business to be putting code into this, because it's just like ChatGPT. And so it is going to OpenAI at the end. So if the policy of your business is that you don't put code and sensitive IP into ChatGPT or Claude or Gemini, then don't put it into this either, right? Because basically the policy is we don't want IP flowing outside of our security boundary. But this is what will be coming, as Patrick mentioned. alongside the 2025 release. Cool. Yeah.
So we've got the AI here is to sort of help developers understand the system and visualize it and that.
Yep.
Do you see a plausible future where this could actually be used as the basis for in-user sort of chatbots and documentation being sort of set up and generated?
Yes, yeah, good. Yep. Yes, so what... good question. I think my sense is that in between these two, there's actually there's some hybrid private space, space where we could provide the tuned model, so the open way, the self-hostable model, right? Now, whether or not we could also host that as part of a managed service or provide it, the machinery, if you like, for someone to host in their business, that would enable two things. One, it would enable any kind of sensitive documentation or material that you wouldn't want to put into a cloud. And I know you're probably thinking of skipped-in cases, perhaps, that you could put it in there. That's essentially the way that Ask Jay works, right? So there's that. And that would also enable then, just as a general chatbot, for you to securely put your application code into it and ask questions of it as well. So if that's of interest, please come. Yeah, my sense is just from a few conversations we've had over the last month with people that there's potentially a middle-of-the-road option here. It's not, it's not as perhaps high touch. It's all the way to the right, but it's private as compared to that, right? So
I was more thinking about not many clients being able to use this approach, but being able to take it further to start not target developers using it as a tool, but it being provided as a tool for end users of our systems understanding how to use it.
Sorry, yeah, you would. So the generalisation from that is if we had what I've just waved my hands around and described, in theory you could put any documentation in there, for example, right, and make it chattable. So if it wouldn't just have to be for developers, right? It could be for any application. Yep, exactly. Yeah, cool. Cool. Is there any? No. Oh, yep. Sam.
I think what would be really useful is if you're in a method and you're coding away, if you could somehow click a button and it would show you, AI would come in with your business rules and logic. I need to name that attribute that, and this needs to be that, and then transient's not deleted, and all those things. If you could do that within the Jade application, then that would be very, very useful. Yep.
Thank you. No, good. And directionally, that's exactly where we want to end up. And so the reason that we've done it this way first, in a way with Doc, is before you start investing in, if you like, a lot of the integration, right, the actual, the UX and everything of it, which you're right, is where we to go. What we need to first make sure of is, are the agents actually operating on the code and producing stuff that's useful, right? Otherwise, we're investing in a UI that looks great but isn't useful, right? And so the fastest way for us to start testing and learning and iterating on that is just, and certainly getting feedback on now, as we can produce it in a website and we can just keep adding pieces into that as the agents, as we output more agents. So that practically speaking, this was the fastest way for us to get going and engage with the TSB teams. But if the value of this is proven, then that's exactly where it would start going, right? How do we actually start bringing it closer into the IDE, as you're working in the code? Yep.